rich, and we are all worthy, which is something we're going to be talking about today. We have been exploring creating prosperity and abundance in our lives. Eric Butterworth, the preeminent unity minister, says, the need is not to find a way to get something, but to alter the inner states of mind that have been blocking the natural flow of substance into your life. The starting point, Butterworth says, is realizing prosperity is to accept responsibility for your own thoughts, thus taking charge of your life. So what we're going to do is briefly recap what we've looked at over the last couple of weeks relative to creating prosperity. And then we're going to talk about clutter. We're going to get messy. And we started out talking about prosperity by simply being joy. Focusing on whatever in our life that brings us joy, and experiencing that joy and expressing that joy. Because as we are joy, we are putting out a vibration, a light, happy vibration that brings more of the same back into our life. And frankly, it's a whole lot more fun to be joyful than to be miserable. Be joy, step number one to prosperity. And you might find that as you focus on those things that you find joyful, it just might take you to a place of gratitude. The second thing we talked about was to make a list. No, we're not playing Santa Claus. We are making a list of those things that we desire to draw into our life. Not just things, but experiences, people. What are your desires? What are the desires of your heart? What are you craving to have, to experience? Write it down. That's powerful, extremely powerful. And we talked about that in depth a couple weeks ago. Step number 3 was to make a picture board or a treasure map. Put something together, something visual that represents what you are creating in your life. I have to tell you, your Unity of the Valley Board of Directors took this to heart. We made a list, and we have started our picture board. And Sherry's going to open that for us. That is just the beginning. And if you can't see it from where you're sitting, the affirmation right in the middle of it, underneath the open lotus, which is all about expanded consciousness, says, through the prospering power of the Christ presence, Unity of the Valley is a community growing in consciousness, numbers, and prosperity. Our Sundays are inspiring and joy-filled. Our music consistently excellent and uplifting. Our classes well-attended and meaningful. Our coffers filled and overflowing. And our positive impact in the greater community substantial. We give generously of our time, talents, and resources. Our good comes from the most amazing sources, and we are grateful. Do you want to participate in that with all of us? What you're going to find in the skylight room at the far end, down by the youth ed rooms, are piles of magazines and scissors and fun tack, because this isn't just the board's project. This is our community's project. How would you like to see this spiritual center evolving? In what ways? Bring pictures from home, cut some out from magazines today. This is a project that's going to be going on for a few weeks. And get it up here on the board. And we're going to have this front and center week after week, so we can all focus together on creating the abundance and the prosperity that we were created to experience. So let's have some fun with this, and let's create Unity of the Valley as we envision our spiritual community to be. The other thing we talked about just last week, along with picture boards or treasure maps, if you will, is to write and say your affirmations out loud for 5 minutes every day. Your words are powerful. And as you affirm your desire, as you speak it out loud, that is powerful. It changes you, and it draws the divine substance of the universe into activity in your life. Do not, for one moment, underestimate the power of your affirming statements about the prosperity and the abundance that you are wanting to enjoy in your life. Steps 1 through 4, be joy, write your goals, make a picture, visualize, hold it in your mind, and write and say, write and work your affirmations. Are you ready for step number 5? Declutter. Get rid of all the stuff in your life that doesn't serve you. And we collect a lot of clutter on a lot of levels. The obvious, of course, is on the surface level. How many of you have things in your closet that you have worn once? Or maybe not at all? Yeah, we got one honest person. Okay, we have a lot of honest people. How many of you have done what I've done? I've gone out and purchased something because I really needed it, and for me it's something for the kitchen, only to go home and find out I already have it. But there's so much other stuff, I didn't even know what I had. We tend to accumulate a lot of stuff. And the more we accumulate stuff, we might find that it's not serving us real well. Yeah, I'm not much into spring house cleaning, but fall house cleaning really gets me going. I think it's the idea of being a Minnesotan, knowing the winter's coming, knowing there's going to be more indoor time. I want to make my indoor space more welcoming. So that's when I start going through closets and cupboards and drawers and out in the garage, the shed, and look at what can be moved on, what can be moved out. Our neighbors right across the street are right now, as I speak, having a garage sale. And holy Toledo, the amount of stuff out in their driveway is staggering. But I think if we were all honest, we might admit to the same thing. Remember the decluttering we did back in July? Cleaning out the rooms and the classrooms and all of our storage areas? We piled stuff on tables in the skylight room. Not bad stuff, but it was stuff that we weren't using, that wasn't serving us. And thank you so much for everyone's help in that decluttering process, because we found out we had a lot of space, and now we are better utilizing that space, including by hosting the Russian Education Center of Minnesota. It's a decluttering project that's blessed us and blesses them. Get what you don't need out of your life. And I know sometimes it's hard. That blouse that's hanging in the closet that you wore once, but you paid so much for it. But it doesn't work with anything you wear. It doesn't flatter you. Get rid of it. It's not serving you. That piece of equipment, that tool out in the garage that you bought for that one project 17 years ago, do you really need to keep storing it? I read about a gentleman who had many, many tools because he worked with them all the time. And when he retired, he surveyed all of his tools and realized, there are a lot of people that could benefit from this. And so he worked with the community center and established a tool lending library. I thought that was brilliant. He took the clutter that he was no longer using and made it available to those who could use it and utilize it quickly and easily. Divine inspiration at work, without a doubt. Consider, look around your home. What do you have that doesn't serve you, that you could let go, knowing that that clutter is literally blocking the flow of good into your life. There's another place to declutter. You might take a look at your calendar, your schedule, where you keep track of your commitments, your meetings, your work time, your obligations, your social time. What have you got in your calendar that doesn't serve your highest good? Consider carefully where you spend your time, because we can clutter up our lives with all kinds of activities. But is it raising our consciousness? Is it serving our higher good? When we've got so much going on in our life that we don't have time to respond to divine inspiration, we have missed a fabulous opportunity to create prosperity. You know, our prosperity comes from divine ideas. If you think your prosperity is going to come from $1,000 bills raining down from heaven, well, I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you. But what we do get when we open our minds are brilliant ideas to create prosperity. And I think about some of the people in our world. What would the world look like, for example, if Henry Ford just didn't have time to create production line manufacturing? What would our world look like if Bill Gates was too busy hanging out with the guys for a beer after work to pursue what he was inspired to pursue? What would our world have lost if William Shakespeare hadn't listened to his divine inspiration and written some exquisite sonnets and plays that we still savor today? Divine inspiration is absolutely useless until we act on it. And we need to create space in our life and in our time and in our calendars to listen to that inspiration and to follow up on it. Eric Butterworth reminds us, an infinite mind will put ideas into your mind, words into your mouth, creativity into your hands, and boundless opportunity before you, guiding you on your way. All that's required is that you keep yourself centered in the creative flow, in tune with positive thoughts and actions. There's another place we tend to clutter up our life, and this one tends to become a real sticky wicket for some of us. But we may consider some of our friendships and relationships and ask ourselves, does my involvement with that individual serve a higher good? I was chatting with someone in the lobby this morning, and she said she'd gone through this process, recognizing that there were people in her life that, God bless them, all they did was suck energy out of her life and leave her wiped out and exhausted. We need to be discerning with who we spend our time with. And I don't mean to do this with judgment. Let's not make them wrong. But do it with love and compassion, and decide for yourself where your time, where your energies are best invested. And then there's the whole idea of cluttered thinking. Oh, this is what New Thought is all about, day in and day out, isn't it? Taking time to pay attention to those thoughts that ramble through our brain day in and day out. We're told something like 120,000 thoughts a day. How many of those thoughts serve you? How many of those thoughts uplift you and inspire you? How many of those thoughts drag you down and wipe you out? We need to pay attention to our thoughts. We need to pay attention to the words that come out of our mouths. If you ever thought you thought one way about something and you're chatting with a friend and something else pops out of your mouth and you're shocked? You didn't realize, oh gosh, I didn't know that I thought that, much less said it. Pay attention, because what we entertain here creates our lives. And we need to be vigilant about the thoughts we choose to hang out with, and consciously get rid of those thoughts that don't serve us. In the Unity tradition, we call this denials. We deny certain thoughts and any power they may have over us, and we replace those thoughts with positive, affirming thoughts. And if you're going to really declutter, pay attention to the thoughts you're hanging out with, and then use discernment to decide, are those the thoughts you really want to be creating in your outer world? There's another very powerful way to declutter. It's called forgiveness. When we're entertaining anger or resentment, we are blocking our good. Anger and resentment keep our good from coming to us. They keep us immersed in dark, heavy energy. They don't serve us or the other person. Now, there are other times when we'll get seriously into depth about forgiveness, but just the highlights, because we have talked about it before, is to forgive doesn't mean to let someone off the hook for bad behavior. It might be appropriate to hold their feet to the fire, so to speak, and look for amends and restitution. But how much of your time and energy are you going to invest in feeling angry and resentful? Every moment you spend being angry and resentful of someone for something they've said or done hurts you. If you really want to do some serious decluttering work, do some serious forgiveness work. I tell you, that will hold you back more than all the stuff and junk in your garage and closets. When we do forgiveness work, the one individual who most needs our forgiveness is that person sitting in your chair, and that person standing right here, right now. Forgiving ourselves, our errors and mistakes, our misjudgments, our bad calls. When we forgive ourselves, once again, we open up ourselves to all the good that's there for us. How many of you know the story of Saul's transformation? Saul became Paul in the New Testament. He went through a real transformational experience. And I want to just recap his story ever so briefly. Saul, as he was originally known, was a Pharisee. Not only a Pharisee, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. In other words, he was a big mucky muck at the temple, admired by many. His goal in life was to persecute those who followed the teacher, Yeshua. He even bragged in the book of Acts about participating in the stoning of St. Stephen. And he shares this story in the book of Galatians. He says he prosecuted the church of Yeshua and tried to destroy it, specifically to advance his own notoriety as an esteemed Pharisee among the Jewish people. He had an agenda, he had a goal, and he worked it. He worked it hard and was very successful at it until one day something life-changing happened to him. He was on his way from Jerusalem to Damascus in Syria under a mandate by the high priest of the temple. He was instructed to seek out followers of that renegade teacher, Yeshua, to haul them back to Jerusalem for questioning and possible execution. On his journey, something happened, startling, literally blinding. A blinding light appeared, and he heard a voice as he neared Damascus. And he lay on the ground, stunned by this light and this voice. He heard, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" And Saul, laying on the ground, stunned by this brilliance, said, "Who are you?" The response he got was, "I am the Christ presence, whom you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city, and you'll be told what to do." Other men traveling with Saul heard what he heard as well, but they didn't see anyone, nor did Saul. But when Saul got up from the ground, he discovered to his horror he was blind. Absolutely black. Nothing. No vision at all. So his entourage led him to Damascus, and there they waited for 3 days, Saul in absolute darkness and blindness. Oh, a faithful man named Ananias of Damascus was listening to divine guidance, and his divine guidance instructed him to go find Saul somewhere there in the city of Damascus, to lay hands on Saul and to restore his sight, which Ananias did. He placed his hands on Saul and said, "The Yeshua who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit." And immediately, something like scales, we're told, fell from Saul's eyes, and he could see again. He got up, he was baptized, he took some food, he regained his strength, and went on to become the preeminent teacher of the message of Yeshua, the way as it was known then, throughout the Middle East. And in fact, it's largely because of Saul, or now Paul's, zealous teaching, that Yeshua's teaching has come down through the centuries to us today. So what does Saul's transformation experience have to do with you and me and decluttering and forgiving? Well, we're told when we study metaphysical Bible topics that every character we study represents at least some facet of ourselves. And what it represents to us, what Saul represents to us, is our lack of vision, our blindness, if you will, about certain aspects of our lives. I would suggest that Saul failed to see the truth of his being, that he was an exquisite creation of the ineffable Creator, that he was a man that was worthy and exquisite, capable of so much more than persecuting others. You see, he even acknowledges that his persecution of the fledgling Christian church at that time was all ego-based. He wanted to be a bigger mucky-muck at the temple. And so he figured by persecuting these fledgling Christians, that would raise his notoriety. He didn't get that he was already an extraordinary creation. In fact, he'd fallen victim to ego, which is exactly opposite of spirit. But when the scales fell from Saul's eyes, he saw things differently. I believe he started to see himself as a child of the Creator, imbued with all kinds of gifts and talents that could be used in positive, uplifting ways. I believe when those scales fell from his eyes, that he experienced forgiveness of self. Think about this. He was an acknowledged persecutor. He was an acknowledged murderer. And yet, when those scales were removed from his eyes, when he remembered the truth of who he was able to forgive himself. Rich sang a beautiful song for us this morning on worthiness. And it's our perspective about our worthiness that often blocks our prosperity. There's something deep inside of us that thinks, I don't deserve it. I've done this, that, or the other thing. I've behaved badly. We have a whole list of reasons why we may not think we're worthy. And the only reason we may not think we're worthy is because we have forgotten the truth of our being that Saul suddenly remembered when those scales fell from his eyes. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for ever believing you were less than the glorious creation that you are. When we do that, we open the door not only to self-love and great joy, but also the prosperity we may be wanting to experience in our life. You are inherently good. And as we forgive ourselves and others, we shift the energy blocks of prosperity, and we open the doors for even more good to come into our lives. So be joy. You have every reason to be joyful. You are a glorious creation of the Creator. Write the list of your divinely inspired desires. Make a picture board. Visualize it. Draw it into expression. Write and work with your affirmations. And clear away the clutter. Anything and everything that's standing between you and a richer, fuller, more joyful, more satisfying life. You are worthy, and you deserve all the good that you are willing to receive as we forgive others and ourselves. So let's know one more time our affirmation for the day as we clear the clutter. Following the divine guidance of my inner wisdom, I release all that doesn't serve me. I forgive myself and others quickly, compassionately, and completely, and become an individualized expression of the infinite flow of substance. And so it is.